So it being on or about 6:30, I want to bring this meeting of the Easton Conservation Commission to order. Welcome to the February 28th, 2022 Easton Conservation Commission meeting. We're holding this meeting virtually. Already have a hand up.
It's me, Mr. Chairman, Tish.
Yep.
I just want to let you know that you received one DEP file for Goodspeed. The other DEP files did not come in, and all your abutters lists are in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in accordance with Governor Baker's February 12th, 2022 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, we're meeting virtually. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted. Applications can be viewed on the Easton Conservation Commission webpage, and this meeting is being recorded, audio and video, and will be posted on the ECAT website. So before we get started, just want to take a roll call to ensure we have a quorum. So Callfell's here.
Carol here.
Crossman here.
Spady here.
Thank you. First up is 26 Picker Lane. This is a request for determination of applicability for the installation of an in-ground pool, patio, fence, and mitigation plantings. So I think the applicant is here.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Evening. Would you like me to put my video on?
That would be great.
Good evening. Thanks for your time.
So why don't you just introduce yourself, and either you can put up your plans or we can put them up for you, whichever works best for you.
Yeah, so my name's Brandon Malpe. I live at 26 Picker Lane. I've been here for just over 2 years. Been living in Easton for just about 8 years now. But my wife and I are looking to put an in-ground swimming pool in the northwest corner of our property.
Okay.
If you could put the plans up for me, that'd be great.
I can do that. Just got to figure out which window it's in.
That's it.
Let me just rotate it so that we can not turn our heads while we're looking at it. Okay, I assume everybody can see that.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have been working with Clem Surveying and Brad Holmes from Environmental Consulting and Restoration. So they've helped me out with this project. We positioned the pool, again, in the most northwest corner, really as far away as all buffers as possible. And that's kind of what they came up with, what we came up with. So it's a 14 by 30 pool. There's a 9 by 9 spa that's proposed, patio, and fencing.
And so off-site, we have a potential vernal pool and a bordering vegetated wetland over here. And there's also a stream to the south or southeast. So those are our I think, our resources.
And the
Jennifer?
floodplain. Just add the floodplain. Mhm.
And the floodplain. Do we have the floodplain on here? Do you know?
I thought it was on there.
We do have a plan that has the
Yeah.
topography on it, but it looks like this isn't.
There's another one here. No, it's a different one. Maybe I only pulled 2 plans, so maybe there's a different plan. So, I mean, if we have it on a different plan, I'm okay with that. So.
We do have it on a plan. I think it was the 161-foot contour. But it didn't extend too far over onto the property.
If anybody wants me to pull that up, I will. Just let me know. Okay. Anything else before I go to Jennifer and the board? Brandon?
For me,
Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. This is my first time through this process. I've learned a lot, and again, I'm thankful for your time. 6:30 at night.
Okay, Jennifer.
What do you think?
Great. Jennifer, you want to give us some information here?
This permit's only under the bylaw. It's exempt under the state law. And Brandon and I had discussed a small area near flags 3 and 4 that may or may not have had leaves in it, and he knows to take those out if they are there. They also have a restoration plan, so they'll be planting all along that back property line of is it shrubs and trees or just shrubs? There you go.
Yep, shrubs and plants. I think there's several trees in there, hemlocks, some maple, birch.
And he does know that any fill that they take out of the area for the pool should be removed off-site and not spread near the floodplain area.
So, so there's a couple of questions. Actually, instead of me doing that, does anybody have any questions? Comments?
Are we gonna propose for maybe saltwater pool? We kind of go with that usually when it's close to a wetland, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's been recommended by a pool contractor. That's usually something they ask and recommend.
Yeah.
That would be something we would like to go with, unless.
Excellent. Yeah, that's definitely something I'd like to see, at least, just for safety of the wetland itself, so.
The issue with saltwater is it isn't like the ocean. It's
Right.
The chlorine is extracted from salt. That's where it comes from. It's actually a much milder chlorine than you would get through a tablet system or some other sort of system. So just to let you know.
So would the chlorine be safer then?
Yeah, it's a much lower concentration of chlorine is what happens. So.
Got it.
Anybody else? Excellent
from me.
comment. So here's the question that I have, and it has to do with the potential vernal pool.
Mhm.
So the potential vernal pool has 100-foot boundary from the vernal pool, mean high water, and then there's another 100-foot buffer zone beyond that. And I'm not quite sure that's distinguished on these plans. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to this, and I don't know the answers to this. So according to, our regs and our bylaw, and this can be found in 503.13A1, that the boundary of the resource area for a vernal pool, and in this case, a potential vernal pool, as we treat them the same, shall be 100 feet outward from the mean annual high water line defining the depression, but shall not include a lawn, garden, landscaped area, or developed area in existence at the time of the effective date of this provision of the chapter, which was June 2005. So if the lawn existed, just so you know, I mean, I'm assuming this is lawn all the way back to the edge of the property. That's what I was there was 6 inches of snow on the ground. I couldn't see, but I assumed it was. And so my question was the lawn in existence in 2005? I don't know when this home was built. And whether or not it was a rebuilt home or whether
The home was built in 1963, I want to say.
Okay.
And the backyard was all existing. It's all lawn.
so that helps us a tremendous amount. I think that the plans probably are inaccurate based upon that, because then that means that the boundary of the vernal pool ends at the lawn edge, and then the buffer zone starts from there.
Okay.
So normally we'd have 100 feet and then another 100 feet. You'd be off your screen, you know, where it would normally be. But
Mhm.
because the boundary of the vernal pool ends at the edge of lawn, then there'd be another 100 feet buffer zone on top of that. So that's my first issue. So I'm glad. So I mean, Jennifer, I assume there's some way for us to verify that. The Picker Lane's been around forever, so I assume that the house had been so. The second portion of this is that we're talking about a vernal pool buffer zone, and we have a request for determination of applicability as opposed to an NOI. And I know a lot of times with pools, above ground pools, I is probably a different animal than an in-ground pool. But I am a little bit concerned about that from the sense that we're in a buffer zone of a vernal pool, and are we comfortable with this? So from the sense that we've got buffer zone of a vernal pool, we're increasing impervious surface in the area of a buffer zone of a vernal pool. So, or, I'm sorry, potential vernal pool. I really have to catch myself from saying that. I tend to interchange those. So that's my question. I don't know if that came up in any sort of discussions.
You know, I would just add that when I did the site inspection, that potential vernal pool is so small.
Right, it might not even be the 200 cubic feet.
I don't know that that's going to hold enough water for 2 months, a minimum of 2 months in most years.
Yeah, I actually, that's another part of the definition of a vernal pool. It has to hold 200 cubic feet of water. And so I certainly think it's probably only about 10 feet across. And I don't know that I mean, at most it might be 2 feet deep, but is it going to hold it for the entire time? So, I agree that that's potentially not a vernal pool. So it's a potential vernal pool that's not a vernal pool. So I think that's probably true, Jennifer. So I think that assessment is probably pretty spot on. So, but the presumption is on our part, right? Is it's a potential vernal pool. And either the applicant has to show us that it's not, or there's some professional opinion that it's not, or give us something to sort of hang our hat on.
I do know Lou Klim looked up, it's not on any certified vernal pool maps.
Right.
From my experience, we've had record rain this year, so of course there's standing water in there, but from my recollection, it's pretty dry during the summer.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what a vernal pool is. It comes in the spring.
Right.
In the wet season. But again, I haven't been in the home that long, so I can't tell you. I do know it was dry, the year before last. And then this year, of course, we had, just a ton of rain. So
right.
It's continued right through the winter.
Jennifer, do you have any guidance for us on this at all?
Other than, when I looked at it, I thought I highly doubt this is a vernal pool.
Right.
And continued with the rest of my inspection. I wasn't concerned with the project and that whether it was a vernal pool or not.
I know I'm just trying to treat every applicant the same, it's like, and that's my concern. If Brad Holmes came and told us that he didn't think it was a potential vernal pool, I'm not asking you to go on the record, Jennifer. I'm saying, if he came to us and said he didn't believe it was a potential, a vernal pool, it didn't have the potential to be a vernal pool, then because otherwise I have to go what's on the.
Again, when Brad was on site looking at it, he just said that we should treat this as a potential vernal pool.
Yeah, no,
Kind of
Brad's,
thing.
yeah. I mean, that's the way Brad runs, I mean, that's,
Yeah, and I think that's why he wanted to do the mitigation planting. When you proposed that to me, I was on board. So that's kind of where the mitigation planning came from, the 2-to-1.
Any thoughts from anybody else on my concerns? I'm the only one concerned. That's okay. Yeah, you
No,
can say
no,
that.
you're not the only one concerned. I just, it's a sticky situation in that I think that the pool makes sense. I think, we're hearing that it's likely not a vernal pool.
Right.
I think the mitigation planting coupled with that, to be honest, I'm comfortable with this the way it sits.
Right.
But I do understand the hesitation.
Yeah. Has there been any consideration? So you're using stamped concrete as the patio. Has there been any consideration of using a more? I don't even know why I'm asking. I won't even ask it. Using a pervious paver or something along those lines.
It wouldn't be out of the question. I'll look into them. I don't know much about them.
I mean, certainly, pervious in that situation, it only stays pervious for so long, and then it becomes impervious. So at least that's typically what happens without, ongoing maintenance and everything else. So any other comments from the board before I go to public comment? Okay, so any public comment for 26 Picker Lane? Man, I'm really having trouble here today. I do have my 3 screens back, just so everybody knows. Okay, so seeing
I was
none,
gonna ask for it.
thank you, I appreciate it. I know you were concerned last time. So.
I don't see any hands up.
Yeah, no, I saw it finally. Okay, so I am, so I assume we have all the information we need to do, so we should close this.
Yes.
Make a motion to close 26 Picker Lane.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Maybe I.
So that was Caulfield's, Carol second to close 4-0. So just from my perspective, I think we probably wouldn't change this plan very much, one way or the other. This is a lawn that's been existing for 50 years, and so I think even if this was a vernal pool, I think that we're probably the habitat of this, if there were species in this vernal pool, are going the other way, because this is right up against the conservation area. So I am more than inclined. I think that if the applicant hadn't come forward with the mitigation plan, I probably would have said, we got to do something here. It probably is something. I think they've done everything we would do under an NOI. I mean, that's basically my answer. So any other comments? I talk too much. That's what Jennifer tells me after the meetings.
I did not.
So I will make a motion to issue negative determination number 3 with the condition that any fill removed should be removed off site, and the restoration planting must be included.
Maybe second.
Oh, just a second. And that any leaf compost between flags A3 and A4 needs to be removed.
Spady second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady aye.
Caulfield's Spady is second, 4-0. Okay. So even though you got a negative, that's what you wanted here, Brandon. So.
All right, excellent.
Okay.
Luck.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time and yeah, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I have one question. So have approval to move forward with the project. Is there anything I need to come back with? You need pictures or anything, or?
No, I think we have everything we need. Jennifer, do
Okay.
you need something from him? Jennifer?
After completion of the project.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly send us pictures once everything's planted.
Okay, all right, excellent.
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question, but thank you. Yes,
All right. Well,
Thank
thanks again.
excellent. So next up is 71 Mill Street. I assume that's Garrett. Okay, somebody's doing it for me, so that's perfect. I like it better that way.
I'm trying to do it because it takes a few minutes from my thing to let them on there, so.
So this is a notice of intent for 71 Mill Street to complete the subdivision project, roadway, sidewalk, wetland restoration, wetland markers. We did not get the DEP on this one. Is that correct? Right.
No.
So we don't have a
That is
DEP,
correct.
but we can, let's proceed with the presentation so that next meeting we can just do it in a half a heartbeat, okay? Assuming we get through the presentation. Garrett, introduce yourself for the record.
Good evening. I'm Garrett Tunison from Tunison Environmental Consultants, and I'm here on behalf of my client, KLK Enterprises, for Barron Estates.
Great.
So basically, this notice of intent is just because the old notice of intent expired. So the majority of the site work has been completed. The work has been done in the buffer zone, but additional works is still required. And that additional work is the top coat of pavement for the entrance area of Barron Estate, Barron Drive. And there are a couple of restoration plantings that still need to be planted in the buffer zone restoration area that died in the last year or two. And in addition, last time we spoke about this site and whether or not we should file a notice of intent, the commission did request that we put in a split rail fence. So that is being proposed within the 100-foot buffer zone to go around the buffer zone restoration area so no one mows in that area. So that's the extent of the notice of intent. On the remaining areas of the site, there's only 4 houses left to be sold, lots. The majority of the site has been built. We have been doing the erosion control monitoring. The site is pretty well buttoned up. They're doing daily street sweeping, and they are continuing replacing erosion controls since some of the construction crews out there have been running them over or parking on them because parking's limited. So that has been happening, but the proponent, KLK Enterprises, has been on it and has been replacing the erosion controls almost weekly out there to make, in some areas, just to make sure that they stay in compliance.
Great. Does anybody want me to bring up plans, or Garrett can do it, or I can do it, whichever.
Yeah, I have them available if you have them as well. It's doesn't matter to me.
For the record, we'll just bring them up and then we'll, I'll bring them up in at least one version of them, and then we can at least we can go through it. So, I mean, this will give us the best overview, I think.
Yes, that's the sheet I had up.
So this is Mill Street. This is Barron Way or Barron Road or whatever it is.
Barron Drive, yep.
Yep, Barron Drive comes up this way, and I think as you go up further, it goes up and around, and this is a small little cul-de-sac off to the side, Cooper Lane. And this goes off into another cul-de-sac as well. So I look, just as a comment. So Jennifer, Garrett, I don't need any additional information, I don't think. Jennifer, do you have any comments for us?
Just a couple. So I think you also have 4 more lots that need to be permanently stabilized. Roughly.
Yes.
Throw that into the mix. The operation and maintenance plan should include the condition from Natural Heritage on when to mow the basin.
Yep.
Okay. And just to make sure that landscapers understand when they're supposed to mow or not mow the basin. We should put an actual physical sign up. That can be one of the conditions as well. The conservation restriction was recorded. And that's about it. It's just making sure we have a valid permit for the rest of the work.
Yeah, and just as a comment from myself, I've probably been up on this site probably 10 times in the last 3 years or so, and even in the middle of, storms and everything else, the roadways are kept in good shape, and I do want to commend the contractor for paying attention to those things, because a lot of that does go by the wayside. And one time I did comment that the erosion control was there, but it had been run over, and but it was new, so it wasn't like an old erosion control. It was like one that had only been there a few days, and like you said, the workers had just run over it with their vehicles. So I'm okay with this. Jennifer, was there some other comment about potentially modifying the signage so that it's not so obtrusive?
The
I want to use a
conservation
different word.
restriction signs.
Yeah.
We had talked about that with the developer, and we can just put that as a condition in the permit that they may be revised. So if he wants to bring up that subject, and
Right.
we can revise those signs so they're a little more appealing.
Yeah, so they don't look like a no parking sign.
We do have, I believe, I think it's 16 signs, and I think they're quite nice looking. They're not gaudy at all. They're quite nice for conservation sign. And I think it spells out pretty much what you're looking for. I can send those over to you. We have pictures of them. So you can take a look and see if that matches what you're looking for. So,
Sure.
and these are signs we've had for a little while. It's something I had. So it's Kenny looked at them and thought that they look nice, and he thought that they would work. So we'll send that over for you to take a look at.
Sure.
Okay, so any other comments from the board? Any public comment for 71 Mill Street? Seeing none, so we're going to continue to our next hearing, which is the 14th, March 14th. So, do you remember I talked about those bugs a couple meetings ago? Another one just flew by me. So make a motion to continue to March 14th.
Carol second,
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second, 4-0 to continue. Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Next up is 16 Goodspeed Lane. J.K. Holmgren Engineering Notice of Intent for construction of a single-family residence and all appurtenances. We do have the DEP number on this one,
Correct. 1730.
1730. And Ethan Ekstrom is up. You can unmute yourself, turn on your video, and
Yeah, it won't let me promote Scott Rogers for some reason.
let me see what I can do here.
Oh, you did.
Nice. Okay, I don't know if Scott or Ethan is going to do this.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Scott.
For the record, my name is Scott Rogers from J.K. Holmgren Engineering, and with me this evening is Ethan Ekstrom from Ekstrom Homes. Before you tonight, we have just a little bit of history on Goodspeed Lane, which you guys are very familiar with. This particular one, we did have an increase in the amount of impervious area on this proposal. So we have filed a new notice of intent to accommodate all those potential changes. So we have a larger driveway on the north side of the site, and we have basically designed to be discharged to a proposed grass swale.
Sorry, Scott, did you want to put your plan up?
Sure. All right, can you see that?
Yeah, if you just zoom in a little bit though.
Let me
Thank
go to the second sheet's actually a much better
Okay,
view of
thank
that
you.
whole thing. Yeah, so you can see where the house is here and the garage on the north side of that. The driveway is further north from the proposed garage. And then on the eastern side of the site, you can see that swale that comes down towards the backyard, I'm going to call it. So we've also proposed a bioretention area, which is on the southwest corner of the lot, kind of that triangular shape, if you will. That has been designed to handle the 100-year storm, and we have provided to the Conservation Commission a drainage report that backs all that data up. Also, we've proposed infiltration Caltech units essentially for the roof runoff for the house and garage, which is just north of the bioretention area. So because of the work that was done, 4 or 5 years ago, when this project was, first, cut and started to be developed with the roadway, there was an area inside the 50-foot buffer zone, which is located here where my cursor is. We've taken the liberty to add some buffer zone enhancement planting to that to kind of put back some of that area that's been disturbed inside the buffer zone. We've also provided a planting plan for the bioretention area as well. We received some comments from the conservation agent, from Jennifer, back on February 16th. And since that time, we've made some revisions to the plans to address all those. And then we had a couple of minor comments that came out of that. I did talk to Jennifer, I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week. One of them was make sure we had the septic system easement, which is on the north side of this lot. It's actually where that reserve area is. And that was shown. So we talked about that, Jennifer and I. And then the second comment was really
Oh,
about.
hold
So-
on, since you're on there.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see the reserve area, but where's the easement? Where's the label that shows where the easement is?
It might be on the other plan. Or I have the wrong plan showed up. I remember looking at this and it was on there. We added it. It wasn't there before, but I did add it. So.
Okay, the revised one, you added the language.
Yeah. The language was on there. It's just kind of a piece of text that kind of got lost in the shuffle, if you will. But the line is basically parallel to that reserve area. Let's say 5 feet off of that. So it is on the plan.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to get you while you were on that topic.
Yep, certainly. And then the last item that was out there was just basically the design of the Caltech units. And Jen and I talked about that briefly. And basically, the bioretention area is there for more of a low impact development feature. And the reason why we use Caltech units a lot of times for roof runoff is it's a great way to create groundwater recharge that actually I think is better than the bioretention area itself. So in this case, we have the great advantage of the groundwater recharge with the roof runoff by way of the Caltech units, and also the improvement to the stormwater with the bioretention area. So I think we've addressed all the outstanding comments. The one thing that did come in, I believe it was I think it was Friday, the DEP file number did come in too. So with that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
Jennifer?
Scott, are there any inspection ports for the Caltech unit?
They have not been shown, but I can certainly add that.
Okay, if you would add that, please. It looks like there's a bend in the line from the house to the Caltech unit, and then I imagine there's one more there. It's just to make it easy for the homeowners to maintain it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Jennifer?
No, that was it for me.
Any comments from the board? Questions? So so I just want to sort of for the record show that there's almost 1,000 foot increase in impervious surface. I think it's about 25 feet short of that. Impervious surface with this design, right? I mean, is that, am I reading those calculations correct?
Yes, it's kind of unfortunately grown in the wrong direction. It's gotten a little bit bigger here and there, but it is the actual area of land that's available to do anything is pretty limited, just because we've got constraints on all sides essentially.
Yeah, so the back side of this, so the front part of the lot is sort of a little bit of a mound to it, and then it goes back off, pretty quickly. It drops off into the wetlands. So where the current grading is, are you expecting to change that grading at all, or keep that grading in place?
So there's a small amount of grading that's going to happen on like the southeast corner. It's outside of, most of it is outside the buffer zone, the 50-foot buffer zone. So we are going to make a slight change to the silt sock in that area. You're probably talking 5 feet at max. It's not a huge change in that. There are some areas though, like we talked about, that will be sort of restoring back to, a better condition than what's there now. So we'll basically be replanting that and staying out of those areas. We've also shown those conservation posts that we often do.
So in the bioretention area, and then you have this other proposed buffer zone enhancement. Do we have the square footage on how much areas those are?
I can give you a number.
An engineer can always give me a number.
The area where the buffer zone enhancement is about 500 square feet. And the bioretention area is about 310 or so square feet.
Okay. So my concern, and I continue to raise this on this particular thing, and it's why there's NOIs that are going on now instead of just requests for amendments to the prior permits, is because we've seen this creep happening, and this is the largest creep we've seen. I mean, the other creeps we've seen happen at 20%. I think the last one was 21%, and now we've gone to a 44% increase on this. I mean, we used to talk about it in hundreds of square feet. Now we're talking about it in 1,000 square feet. It just seems like because we were filing an NOI, we decided to really. I mean, if this was an amendment, it definitely wouldn't be coming in at this level. This was a very sensitive site with a whole bunch of stuff that went into play on this. And I know we've asked you to come with the NOI, but you've only got 800 square feet of offset of mitigation where it increases almost 1,000 square feet. I mean, it's, I don't know, is that enough? I'm just questioning, is that enough? You don't have a lot of room, number one. I mean, I understand that part. Any other comments from anybody else?
Did, on lot 3, did we do a post and rail fence? Or was the posts as well?
I don't recall.
Okay,
Which lot is this, 4?
this is 4.
Right, we did 5 already as an amendment. We did 3 as an NOI. This is another NOI. We did 7 and 8 as an amendment. So
What's the total square footage of the driveway now with the increase?
The proposed driveway itself is 1,016. It was, the approved driveway was 550. There's a little table on the left-hand side of I don't know if Scott wants to bring it up. There's a table on the left-hand side of the page 1 of the plan.
Zoom into that. Yeah, thank you.
So I mean, the people buying the house, they're aware that there will be no yard and they're okay with that.
You know, Ethan and I have talked about this in depth, really. This is probably the most challenging of the lots that we've had so far, just because, you know, the septic system's on the north, the wetlands are on the south side. We got the common driveway on the west. There's really no place to, I mean, this house isn't ginormous. It's, I think it's kind of a moderate size house. It's not teeny, but it's not, you know, it's not a McMansion, for lack of a better term, but it does have a lot of constraints as to where everything can go. And I think, you know, we have tried to mitigate through drainage improvements. We have tried to mitigate through buffer zone enhancement improvements. So I feel like we've done a decent job of trying to put back as best we can.
So how much of the roof runoff is you handling all the roof runoff into the Caltech system?
Yes, we are.
So how do you ensure that the homeowner is going to know how to maintain that Caltech system?
So we provided in our drainage report, the couple of things that we provide typically in our drainage reports. One, we provide an O&M plan, if you will, for during construction and erosion control measures that need to be maintained. And then we also provide a post-construction operation and maintenance plan. And within that operation and maintenance plan, it talks about the different BMPs that we are providing, being the bioretention area, you know, sweeping of the driveway, maintenance of the Caltech units. So those things are in there. And so, you know, I'm sure Ethan, when he sells these houses to people, is going to have to let them know that they do have maintenance requirements. They have to take care of it.
So maybe Ethan could speak to it then, because I think that I absolutely, as an engineer, as a commission, we understand those things as they are related to what's necessary to be done. And I think that probably if one of us had a Caltech unit in our property, we'd probably know how to maintain it. But I think that the average homeowner coming into Easton paying X $100,000 for a home probably doesn't have a great idea what an O&M plan is. And so how do we, number one, educate the homeowner, and that's even the initial homeowner? How do we ensure that they follow the O&M plan? And then any subsequent homeowner, how do we ensure, because what happens is we might get the first one to do it for the first couple of years, and then it falls off. This is one of those things that doesn't get done, you know, in the fall or whenever they do it. And so those are the questions that I have about these type of systems at all. I mean, we talk about O&M plans about, you know, pavers. We talk about O&M plans about, you know, all that sorts of stuff, you know, pervious pavement driveways, you know, so Ethan.
Sure, yeah, if I may, you know, before I get to the point about kind of the education, the maintenance of these systems, I wanted to just mention, you know, I hate to keep playing the planning board card because I don't want to do that, but just the thought process, at least behind the driveway increase was only that, Scott, do you mind scrolling down to the enlarged view?
Sure.
The only reason that we increased the driveway was because originally the driveway was from the westerly 24-foot garage wall. That's where the garage doors were gonna sit, and then go, you know, west towards that common driveway. And the planning board raised a good question. They said, well, you know, there's a chance that a car could be sticking out if parked in the driveway into the common drive. And that's a fair question. So based on the, you know, kind of the restrictions in the area we had on the site, we felt that the side entry garage made more sense. And that's at least, you know, the reasoning behind it. You know, like Scott said, him and I have talked, and we really don't feel that there was a much better approach to this site other than what we have here.
Yeah, And, you know, Ethan, I understand that, and I think that I'd probably owe a phone call to the planning board chair to have these conversations to make sure that maybe we have a joint, maybe we should have had joint, you know, meetings on some of these things, because you're hearing one thing from us and a different thing from them. And I know you're sort of stuck in between, and this isn't the first time this has happened. It's not done intentionally by either one of us. You know, we're all just trying to do what's best within our regulations. And I think that maybe we need to be a little bit cognizant of that, and maybe have some of those conversations together as opposed to in isolation. So, I mean, at least 500 feet of the increase in impervious is the driveway, and it's probably a better driveway, you know, and it was done at the request of the planning board. I think that the fact that we're you know, capturing all the roof runoff into, you know, a stormwater system as well as a bioretention area, I think that's helpful. There's no question. I think that's helpful. But the question is, how do we ensure that someone knows how to deal with an O&M plan?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable question. Quite frankly, we haven't had to do much of these where, you know, where we've had to put a plan in place in order to educate the homeowners and ensure it gets maintained. But we do have a buyer for this lot, you know, and hopefully he hangs out, you know, through all this approval processes and whatnot. But that being said, you know, we're going to put it in our documentation, just like you have a spec sheet and a budget for a house. There's going to be a summary sheet and a protocol to follow that we're going to make sure sticks, you know, because we're doing most of the development, so we want to make sure it goes successfully. But you know, that's I guess the intent.
Jennifer, if you had any experience on how to sort of create some sort of accountability for O&M plans, and it's okay to say no, because I get the sense.
No, I mean, most people, they go to closing and they don't read any of this. That's why we do pre-construction meetings where I explain the permit to them. But once that house is sold to someone else, unless there's a sign in the yard, people aren't going to know what they're supposed to do. They're not going to go back through the deed to find an old operation and maintenance plan to figure out what the swale is. You know, somebody's going to fill that in.
Any comments from the rest of the board?
Just quickly, is it hard to clean? Like, is it a process?
Hard to clean what? Sorry.
The system you have for the homeowner to take care of it.
No, the actual roof Caltech units, you know, it's clean runoff. So if you're cleaning your if you're cleaning your gutters out, nothing should really get in those Caltech units, but they should be inspected, you know, once a year, and you're not going to basically be seeing sand or silt in it. It's not like it's a parking lot that's getting, you know, runoff from parking lots. So those should be not a big deal. The bioretention areas, it's just normal maintenance of, you know, the drainage system. You'd be, you know, keeping it clear of litter.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be anything that's hard to do, but I understand the concern that you guys are raising.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand the process, just to see.
And to that point, guys, like if there is something that makes it easier, or like Scott said, like if you keep your gutters clean, or if there's a product that's more of like a leaf guard, I don't know. But if there's something that we can do that's a little bit more proactive on the construction side, we're totally open to that as well. You know, anything that'll kind of help stay ahead of it. So, you know, we can stay in touch as we move along, you know, in town with some of these projects.
Okay. Anybody else? Any public comment for 16 Goodspeed? Is that right? 16 Goodspeed. Seeing none. Would you like to close?
Yes, we'd like to close, please.
Make a motion to close 16 Goodspeed Lane.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
So that's Caulfield's, Carol with the second, 4-0 to close. So, I mean, I'm okay with this. I think this is we do have to come up with a solution to this. And I think that there's even a subsequent certificate of compliance where we may actually sort of talk about this a little bit, but you know, we could put some sort of bond on this to ensure that it gets communicated and it gets released after a first year of maintenance or something like that, to sort of motivate people to get that education done. But as Jennifer says, it'll survive the first owner. It doesn't survive the second. And that's really the problem. And but I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay with this, but I do think that it is an issue. It's one that we raise softly a couple of times. I think we're just going to have to come up with a policy, I think. And I don't want to make a policy around this particular one per se, because I don't have an answer and I don't like to do it on the fly. That's my only concern. Otherwise, if I had a plan already, you know, maybe we should have a conversation. Maybe we do a workshop one day or something, or maybe we go to MACC and do stormwater. You know, all of us. I've done stormwater once, so it's probably been too many years. I should go back and do it again, and make sure we understand how we really should be handling stormwater and maintenance. It's really that maintenance thing. I think we understand how to handle stormwater.
Yeah.
How do we deal with these systems that get put in place and make sure on a non-commercial property how it gets maintained. And so
you could cut all of that off ahead of time with better design.
how do we do it on this piece of property?
On this, there's
Yeah.
not much you can do here other than say, I mean, your choices are to approve what you have or not.
Right. Correct. Okay. Is anybody in the mood to deny this NOI? Okay. I'm not either. Although the point is well taken, and Ethan's going to come back with every single new NOI that he comes to me. We're going to have to put in a whole nother set of conditions on. He's going to say, "Oh my God! By the time I get to the last one, I'll never want to build another one in Easton." So I make a motion to issue a notice of intent and permit for work. Issue a permit for work and order of conditions. I know, I caught myself.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Rossman, aye.
ADI.
That's Caulfield's Carol with a second 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so next up is 560 Foundry Street. This was a continued hearing. They have requested another continuance. Did you had some sense from them they wanted a month, or they wanted more than a month, or we wanted more than a month?
They asked for a continuance to the next meeting, and then, you know, we've already known since January that they aren't even before the planning board until the middle or the end of March.
So this is one of these things where do they need to go before the planning board before us? Because I think the planning board's waiting on us.
We're waiting on any kind of document from them.
Okay.
There's nothing for us to review. So you have nothing before you to review yet. My sense is it's not going to come within the next 2 weeks. So they're really not going to be ready for the next meeting. My suggestion is April, but looks like Mike Toolhill joined us and he has his hand up.
Excellent. Mike, we will promote Mike. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi,
Hey, Mike.
Jennifer. We'd like to continue this.
Just introduce yourself for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Toohill from Conoco Engineers and Scientists for the Foundry Street Sawmill project. And we would like to continue this until March 28th. We feel that we will have materials in by the 14th, 2 weeks prior to that meeting.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Can you give me some information on that question I asked about? Is this a planning board before Concom before planning? I almost feel like we're waiting for each other.
Yeah, I feel that way too. It's supposed to be Concom before planning board. The planning board has been waiting for the Conservation Commission to make a decision on this. I think the planning board, from what I understand, I've not been heavily involved in that process. I think the planning board is pretty well set with the design, but they're waiting for the Conservation Commission to weigh in to see if there are any additional changes.
Okay. So I will take it upon me to reach out to the chair of the planning board to make sure that I understand where they're coming from and they understand where we're coming from.
Okay.
And I'm okay with the 28th, but just be cognizant of the fact that, you know, this is a very large project. I'd be very surprised if we're able to sort of get through all the material we have left. And we may break it up into a separate meeting, like on a Tuesday night or something like that, where we do
Okay.
just 560 Foundry, or we break it up into a couple of meetings where we try and tackle an hour at a time or something like that. I don't have an answer to that. I'm just throwing around ideas. I really haven't talked too much even with Jennifer about it. So I just know that there's a lot of material left to go through this, and we've got wildlife, we've got stormwater. At the very least, I think we've been through soil testing and site prep, but it's in general layout. I think we also are pretty well set on that stream crossing, but there's a lot of numbers there that sort of change what happens as far as stormwater is concerned and stuff. So
Yeah, and the floodplain's been hanging us up for quite a while too, and we've
only a year.
I think we've finally come to closure with Woodard and Curran on that, but we'll see.
Okay. So I'm okay with the 28th. 28th sound okay to you, Jennifer? Okay. Anybody else? Make a motion to continue 560 Foundry to the 28th of March.
82nd.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carl, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield, Spadia, 4-0 to continue. Okay, so why don't you just stay right there, Mike? We'll get the same
Thanks.
questions for you out of 91 Union. So 91 Union, this is a continued application as well. This is a notice of intent for a proposed apartment complex, access drives, stormwater, on-site water treatment, and the whole kit and caboodle. That's an official term.
There you go.
So once again, so do you have a sense of when we'll be prepared for this? Or I know there's a couple things going on. This is a potential 40B project and stuff like that. So
It's a 40B project, and we're still working with the state on the wastewater system and the mounding analysis. And as Jennifer will tell you, we have a letter from Wildlands Trust, and we also are in front of the Brockton Conservation Commission. We're actually going to be in front of them in March. I strongly suspect, I'd like to come back on the 28th, but I strongly suspect we're going to be back in April on this one.
so why don't we push it out to the first meeting in April at this point?
Okay. Yep.
What date is that, Jennifer?
April 11th.
Okay, April 11th. Any concerns from anybody about a late April 11th on this? Make a motion to continue 91 Union to April 11th.
Spady, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield, Spadia, second, 4-0 to continue. Okay, Mike, I think we'll let you off the hook.
All right, thank you very much.
I appreciate you jumping in, Mike. I really do.
That's okay. I'm off to Florida tomorrow. I'm happy.
Awesome. Good for you.
Bye.
Next up is 170 Chestnut Street. This is again a continued application for an ANRAD. We haven't heard much from the applicant in quite some time.
We've heard nothing, and we asked if they would have anything for the meeting at least a week ago. We haven't heard anything back from them, and it doesn't look like there's anybody on this meeting.
Okay, so why don't we push it out to April 11th? Any concerns from anybody? I mean, we haven't heard from these guys in months. So, motion to continue 170 Chestnut to April 11th.
Spady, a second.
Roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Spady a second, continues 4-0. Okay, next up is a certificate of compliance for 401 Depot Street. I don't know if we have anybody here for that.
I don't know if anyone is presenting. I don't believe so. So it looked like there was a project for 2 buildings that were condos with 2 units in each one. Stormwater. Thanks, Rory. Okay, so that's one of, there's another building on lot 2. And I think that's where the driveway comes in.
The other building is up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the driveway comes in here, and comes around here in between the 2 units. It like comes right here. And so there's a septic system here and there's another one over here,
Okay.
I think. No, maybe not. I don't know. No, I think you're right. The other one's here in this where it says lot 2. You're right.
Yep. So there was a rather large restoration planting plan on the west side of lot 3 and up and all the way around the buildings. That doesn't look like that had been planted. The area is stabilized. It's mostly native vegetation, but the developer had not done any of the planting. Right now, it looks like all 4 of the units are just owned by homeowners. The developer is not involved at all, as far as I can tell. But they are one of the unit owners is looking for certificate of compliance for a future sale of the home.
So I'm inclined here to issue a certificate of compliance. This is 14 years later, holding the homeowners responsible for something that the developer didn't do. This does come back to the question that we had earlier. And I see this, I've been on this board 5-6 years now, and I know there's a lot of projects that haven't come back to us that are done. And I don't know if it's because they didn't do the whole thing or they didn't know they had to come back and close the permit, and it doesn't come back until, sometime, when they're all trying to clear title so they can sell the property. That's when we usually see these things come in front of us, is when some lawyer's going through the documents and sees that this is an open permit. He's trying to get clear title. So I think that there's a conversation. So about this particular property, it's stabilized, it's native vegetation. I think it's probably okay. It's not what we wanted. It's not what was approved in 2008, but I don't know how we go back and do it without even creating a $100,000, project for somebody to do here, which I don't think is fair to the current homeowners. The one thing though, that I think we do have the opportunity within our regulations to, put a performance bond on activity. And so it doesn't get released until we issue a certificate of compliance. And I think that we probably should be putting something on some of these. If not all of them, I mean, even if it's just some nominal, $500, $400, amount that gets put there that then gets released when they get done with the project. I think we'd have to start thinking about this, because too many permits aren't getting closed out. We got projects like this that have a large restoration or mitigation area that never gets done, because they get a partial, because the septic goes in, the buildings go in, it's all stabilized, and that's it, right? So, I mean, I'd like to consider, does anybody have any strong feelings one way or the other, whether we should do, I haven't done it since I've been here. So I have no experience doing it. I'm gonna have to have Jennifer teach us what is reasonable, what's the expectation is. I'm sure she's got experience on writing these things into the order of conditions. So it's not a huge burden on that side of things. I don't know what burden it is on us to track all that stuff. I also don't want to create I don't want to start putting in $10,000, performance bonds on septic systems, but
A little tougher on the financial departments in town, so you want to be a little discerning about who
Sure.
really needs a bond versus just everybody having a bond.
right. That's
Yeah.
good point. So
Yep, but some of
Yeah.
our new permits now and the processes that were instituted with the pre-construction meeting for all projects. Some of these are going to start getting a little bit easier and closed out more often.
Was that just assurance that the project is done correctly? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
and a lot of times the project is done correctly. They just don't come back to us and close the permit. So I
I
think
think
that
it makes a ton of sense to start looking at the bonds and particularly the larger mitigation projects. And because I think it's a huge problem. And I also think these folks don't really want to be dealing with it when they wind up dealing with it, because we're trying to sell a house and now all of a sudden we have to wait half a month to get on a hearing to close something that we didn't even know about. Because I mean, as much as it does apply to them, does it? I mean, they weren't really parties to the original Conservation Commission, meaning they may not even have known that these things affected the property. I know,
Yeah,
Jennifer, I agree it
I-
applies. but-
And technically it does apply because
Yeah.
they are the homeowner, but yes, I agree with you.
Consumer versus developer.
yeah, I mean, there's no question we could enforce these things.
Yeah.
There's no question, but there's a question of fairness about it that just becomes the problem. So, but I mean, it's a fairly robust wetland off this property. So,
Yeah.
it's in good shape and it's clean. You have to say it's clean. There's not a lot of trash or anything in it, which is a little different than we see in a lot of different projects. So I'm okay with issuing a certificate of compliance here, and then we can start talking about which projects we might want to use a bond on.
Okay,
Agreed.
so this file is for one building, so 2 units. So I would suggest just do the whole file, so both units get theirs. And then at the next meeting, we can just put lot 2 on the agenda for a certificate of compliance as well, and just let them closed, have that closed out.
Sure.
And then we'll figure out who records it at the Registry of Deeds, but we might as well close that project out too, because it's basically the same one.
Okay, so any public comment 401 Depot Street? Seeing none, so I make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for 401 Depot Street, both lots 2 and 3. And that's it.
Carol, second.
Okay.
A roll call vote, Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield's Carol with the second, 4-0 to issue certificate of compliance. 10 Avery Way. So this was originally on here. The applicant withdrew.
Right, so you don't need to have any discussion on it.
Okay.
Because it's withdrawn.
Okay. So I think that's the end of our hearings and that. So accepting the minutes. So I got a little confused because I had 110 and 27. It says on the board, on the agenda, it's 124 and 27. Any thoughts? Did we not get the right set? We didn't approve 10. So we can just approve 110 and 27 and then we'll get 124 next meeting.
Okay, sure.
So comments on 110, just in the first hearing to 4 Wilson Drive, it's just George Collins is referred to as Mr. George. If we could just get him referred to as Mr. Collins. And it's in 2 places on page 1. So I don't have any other comments. Anybody else? Motion.
No comments.
Motion to accept January 10th minutes with the changes to page 1 as noted.
Am I able to vote on that? Because I wasn't here. Or can I vote?
You can always vote on minutes whether you're
Oh.
here or not. So
Spady second.
roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Caulfield Spady a second, 4-0. February 7th, a similar name issue. Ben Carroll was noted as Mr. Benjamin. I made the motion to adjourn, so if we just change that to Mr. Carroll or Big Ben, or I don't know.
Like Mr. Ben.
You like Mr. Ben? Like you're a high school teacher, Mr. Ben? Okay, so that's the only change on page 3, the motion to adjourn. Make a motion to accept the minutes for February 7th with the noted change on page 3.
Carol, second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Spady, aye.
Okay, so next up is we need to appoint a representative to the Community Preservation Committee. Carol Lundeen, who recently resigned, was our representative on that committee. This is the committee that oversees managing the CPA funds, Community Preservation Act, and in Easton we opted into that 20 plus years ago. They review all the applications and make recommendations and whatnot. It meets once a month on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. So I am looking for a replacement of this representative. Obviously, the Conservation Commission has a vested interest in this because a lot of CPA funds get used to purchase conservation property, or in our case, we've applied for CPA funds for the repair of the Wheaton Barn Farm and other things that we've done around town. So we have a vested interest in having a representation on this board. So do I have any interests from anybody? Other than somebody named Rory? You guys
You
are
get to
killing me.
delegate.
Force somebody to do something that they don't have time to do or don't want to do? Well, that sounds worse than work. I mean, I understand the hesitation. I mean, certainly, Nate, this is your second meeting. You know, you can't, jump in feet first and sort of feel like, I don't know what I'm just trying to get my feet under me. So this particular committee is actually, as I said, it's once a month, and it's a little bit different than this one. I mean, there is a period of time from the fall till early spring where they really go through applications because people are requesting funds, but the rest of the time it's a little bit a lesser investment. So, okay, I am going to hold you guys. So I will do it for the next 3 months, but somebody's got to step forward in July. When we people get reappointed in July.
How often do they reappoint? Every 3 months? Or
No,
every year?
so we're basically so usually we reappoint once a year, but that happens at the end of June, beginning of July. Our first meeting in July, we usually reform the board from the sense of 1 or 2 people get reappointed in that period. So then we may choose to change the chair or the vice chair, and then we review any appointments to any committees. In my case, we used to have the 524 Depot Street Committee. I was actually represented on that. The CPA committee. I'm actually the representative on the the MBTA Community Task Force. That I didn't have a choice about. They put chairs on, so I was appointed without a choice. And there was the prior one, which was the wayfinding group as well. We had a representative on there as well. I was that representative. That one lasted about 3 months, and then their work was done. The MBTA Community Task Force is going to probably end at the end of, supposed to end at the end of March. So it's not like I can't handle it. So just, I will do it for 3 months unless somebody wants to step forward. But then when we come July, when we do the chair and vice chair again, and we'll again to look to review who the appointment is for the Community Preservation Committee. I will hope that someone at that point will have found that that's what they want to commit themselves to. I'm happy to explain it to. I'm happy to put you in touch with the chair. Chair is a former select board member, Tom Broussard, great guy to work with, just a fantastic guy. The best thing about that board to me is it meets on Thursdays once a month at 7 o'clock, so I don't have to rush home from work or anything like that. So some people that maybe that's a deterrent, but for me, I have trouble with these meetings at 9 a.m. or 5 p.m. So I will take a motion to appoint someone to the CPC. I make a motion to nominate Rory Caulfield to this as a representative to this. I can't even get a motion out of you guys.
I'll second.
I was afraid to talk.
Make every motion. In fact, I'm gonna next meeting. I'm not making one motion. That's it. I know Mike knows how to do them now. So
We'll be flailing around real good.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Beatty, aye.
Okay, so Caulfield's with Carol with the quick second, 4-0 to appoint Caulfield's to the CPC.
Thank
It
you,
just didn't
Rory.
feel right making that motion, Rory.
Out of guilt?
Out of guilt.
That's bad. So we now have a request in front of us to release a portion of the Meadowview Commons surety bond. So Jennifer, you want to give us, there was something in our packet. It was a letter from the developer with all sorts of documentation about what's been done. This was a permit that came before us last year to finish off this development. There was some mitigation and replication that was going on the property that I think didn't get done before the permit expired, so they had to file another permit. Is that correct?
Mark Perrin has his hand up.
Yeah, he does.
Okay. I'll bring Mark up.
Yes, I mean, it was a very large project where the wetland restoration and replication areas were done at the very last moment. So we have a bond for that. They've been planted, but they were planted at the end of last season, and you don't have 2 growing seasons of plants yet.
So Mark, you're up here. You can turn on your video and your audio if you want to give us some perspective on this. Or not. So the concern here is without 2 growing seasons, because that's the standard, is they could have to replant everything.
Correct.
So the fact that they've spent money on certain plants and done the work already it's like 25% of what needs to get, you need to get the full 2 years to ensure that these plants are going to survive. Otherwise, they could have to redo it all over again. There are times where I've seen them have to replant 50% of the stuff, just for whatever reason. And so I think that from that perspective, I'm a little bit concerned about releasing 75% of the bond and only leaving a couple thousand in there, because a couple thousand won't go far enough to replace enough plants here.
Again, can you guys hear me? It's Mark Perrin.
Yep.
So in relation to actually one of the previous hearings, I guess on a positive note is I did plant the mitigation. I do understand there is a 2-year monitoring period. The first 2 phases, which were the wetland creation A and wetland restoration B, were planted last, late spring, early summer, just FYI, first of all. Hence, there really wasn't any bond put up for those 2 areas because they were approved, hence ECR. Brad Holmes is also my wetland scientist. He sent in reports on 11/3 confirming that wetland creation A was complete per the specifications and the wetland restoration B was complete and per her satisfaction meets the specifications of the permit. We posted the bond for wetland creation B and buffer zone enhancement A, hence what we're talking about tonight. So I guess I do understand the discussion on 2 growing seasons there, especially where they're planted late, but yet planted. But I do understand the commission's concern, which obviously is Brad put in his last report dated January 5th, that he'd be out there early spring to start monitoring per, again, the requirements of the permit. But there's also numerous line items that have been completed that aren't involving just plants. So I guess that's more the discussion where you've seen 50% of plants. There's an allowance of per the bond road cost estimate put in there. There's allowance of a 25% viability / failure. I'm amendable to, like you just said, you've seen 50% have to be done. Talk about 50%, but all the other line items that I've said are complete: nesting boxes, the signage, which we went out of our way to make as long as narrative it was. We went out of our way to make them as nice per the requirements for the subdivision and the homeowners, but they're very, very visible as to what can and should not be done out there. As far as stabilization, and just FYI, there's 2 as-builts out there. I'm sorry, yes, as-builts. One that we put up bonding for with the Conservation Commission, but there's also another $5,516 as-built with the planning board, which encompasses the entire project, and another whole order of conditions that was originally for the entire subdivision, including the mitigation. What happened was it ran out. And that's why when Andrea, before she left, had us refile just for this back piece of the mitigation area, because I'd already received a full compliance from the state on 19 of the houses and 5 parcels on, which ironically is lots 16, 17, 18, 27, and 28, which is all encumbering this mitigation area. And I've already, on that separate order of conditions, has been partially released, and I'm in the process of getting that completed. Because now that I have this new order, I still got to get a full compliance from the state.
You have a partial release on all of those lots when
I have a full compliance.
replication hadn't even been started at that point?
No, there was an original order of conditions. And if
I
this,
understand that.
okay. I have a on record submitted to the Conservation Commission, full compliance on lots 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 19, 21, 22, 24, 25, 26, 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Partial compliance lots 16, 17, 18, 27, and 28.
But
That's the state.
none of the
nothing to do with this
replication
order.
had been done before that.
What's that?
But you got a compliance on all of those lots without
Full
having
compliance
done
on the
replication?
correct. Not in the replication, it had nothing to do. The state came out, Greg McCooch came out in February of 2020, did a site walk. Andrea came a little later in the meeting after the site walk. She had a concern about a parcel being released, but Greg McCooch did do the release. But in this area, Jennifer, was only a parcel on lots 16, 17, 18, 27, and 28. So again, it's got nothing to do with this order. It's a whole new separate order. So I got to comply and file a whole new certificate of compliance when it's all complete. But I guess technically I can't do that for 2 years unless the board tells me differently. Because we've seeded the 2 other areas. There's only one other seeding area, that needs to be done, which is the wetland creation B. We did not seed that. We're not going to seed that to the spring. So, I guess what I'm respectfully asking for, if you go through the line items of the most updated road cost estimate, The excavation's done. And again, there's a report from the wetland scientist, and I know he's reputable to the town too, Brad Holmes, saying this work is complete. So I think the discussion here would be on what viability of the percentage. I've gone for full 100% of the plants because we planted them. But there is a 2-year monitoring period, but there is a number in there, FYI, for monitoring also in that road cost estimate that was approved by the commission, back late fall.
So the current bond is strictly for the replication and wetland creation in the other areas?
Of those 2 areas and this was approved by the board back, I believe, early November. I submitted it back. It was received by the commission on October 25th. And it was approved by this board in November. We had the
I don't
plans.
know why you would release it until it's actually finished and it's stabilized and complete for the 2 growing seasons.
So this is a unusual request just from my perspective. So what normally we don't get requests to release the bonds until the 2 growing seasons are done. So I'm just, what's the rationale for us to make that decision?
I guess the rationale is I just got a major release from the planning board. I shouldn't say that, the zoning board of appeals, because I had to post a bond to complete the roads, which I posted last October, and they released 3/4 of the monies because I got the work completed before, meaning sidewalks, road tops, loaming of the backup of the sidewalks. I mean, we've worked hard, and even in my presentation to you guys back when we posted this bond, I said the plants were on site. We're going to be on, or the remaining plants are going to be on site the following week. So we're not that, unfortunately, that we had to discuss earlier, that developer who didn't plant them, so I guess here's my request. Again, the excavation's done for wetland creation B. The invasive species removal was excavated and treated. That's line items 2 and 3, complete. We brought in the compost approved by the wetland scientist, 200 yards, line item number 4, complete. That's not going to change whether plants die or not, because the compost is exactly what was specified and installed. Then you have the line items 5 and 6, which is the plant material and the plant labor. Then you go to the seed. I didn't seed it, so there's 0 request to have that released. The signage is complete. The nesting boxes are complete. The monitoring is 2 years left, so I request 0 release on the approved amount bond, and the as-built still being held back because that hasn't been submitted. So again, I've done everything in relation to the exact opposite of what you talked about, 2 or 3 things earlier. So I pardon. The key thing here is I've posted bonds in the town of Easton for the last 30 years. And I've always been able to come in, and when work's completed, and I'm all ears about the monitoring period, but I've done the opposite. I'm completing this project and I want to finish. And we're there, other than the 2 growing seasons. So I respectfully request that the line items I just brought up, and then let's put a 50%. I've asked for 100% reduction on my plantings. I planted it. The labor's been done. Mulched every one of the plants. But I am all ears about maybe holding back 50% of that line item. But the other line items that I've requested are complete, and they're not going to change whether the plants live or die.
I would suggest a site inspection by the commission.
We couldn't go out there right now because we wouldn't see anything. We could see the plants. We wouldn't see the ground cover or anything.
Well, there's photos in the report sent by so those reports that I've submitted to the commission show all the photos with no snow on them.
So
Reports are in, it should be on the record.
one of the challenges I think that's a little bit different here than some of the other bonds that come in, especially through the planning and zoning or zoning board of appeals, is that with the work that is done there, once you're done, you're done. And the challenge here we have from a restoration or wetland creation standpoint is that planting the materials and doing the upfront work is just the beginning part of the work, you know, making sure that they survive and everything else is the end goal. So it's like, how do we judge how much survivability we currently have when really that isn't adequately judged, you know, except for 2 growing seasons. That's sort of the standard out there. In fact, we've conditioned it at 3 growing seasons at times. So
Well, I guess, sorry to interrupt, Chair. Again, I guess the thing is this, is A, I keep referring to the concern you had when when developers don't do the work. I've done it. I do understand the viability. I understand the 2-year monitoring period. I think those are really the only 2 line items that need to be discussed, because nothing's going to change. My problem is this, like you just brought up, why other boards release monies. Because a year goes by, you get a terrible winter on brand new pavement, brand new sidewalks. A year goes by because they put a 2-year monitoring period on it. And then some private contractor comes in and destroys your roads. I don't get my money back till I fix the roads. That's why I do what I do. And I've posted bond after bond after bond, not necessarily with the Conservation Commission. I've just done a lot of work in Easton over the years. I know it's a new board and they probably don't know me, but I've been in Easton and developed in Easton for the last 30 years.
no, I mean, I recognize the name, so don't, you know, just because you haven't been before me personally is, you know, I've been here 5 years, so, you know,
My problem is this, Chair, is the signs out there, just like it was specified, okay? You can't miss them, okay? People start walking the dogs out there and they start ripping apart the plants. I own that for 2 years, but I shouldn't own, you know, and I do, you know, and I do make sure the deeds and everything else. And when I do sell a home, and I hear the commission's strained, because when I've dealt with numerous commissions over the years, the biggest problem has been, how do we go to the next homeowner? And how do they know what their responsibilities are? And I've always said deed restrictions, and it should be right on the front page of the deed, because any good lawyer is going to make sure they're aware, and they should be showing their clientele. And I agree. The first client may get it. What about the second and third? So I've been and feel the pain of many boards about this type of stuff. You got to feel my pain, because I'm dealing with these other line items should be a no-brainer, because excavation is excavation. And unless someone doesn't see what Brad Holmes wrote, he's saying everything meets. He did the soil examples after we brought it down to the excavation, then brought the compost in, all in his report. So I just have a lot of monies that don't get released in the future, because what happens is what I just brought up, taking out the Conservation Commission. What happens is when roads start heaving, okay, in bad winters, and then all of a sudden, or things settle. So that's my concern, sir. And that's why I do go after my money. That's why I complete the work and I do go after it. And I want to finish that project. We're almost there. The stabilization, I think Jennifer's been down there 2 or 3 times. There's never been a concern down there during this whole 3-year project of any type of violation down there at all, of any sort. We've been so proactive, like you said, siltation controls. Hence, that's why the state issued us a partial and on the original order in a full compliance and on 19 of the lots, is because of how well it was done.
So I think that, so if I could just have the floor for just a little bit here, I think that you're actually making a point that would be a point of concern here, is that if you're getting back a significant portion of the funds, and something happens that the cost exceeds that, our only ability to cure that is to take the rest of the funds, but it may not cover what needs to get done. And that really, our intention isn't to take the funds. Our intention is to make sure that the work is done appropriately up front. And I'm not saying that you haven't done it so far. It's just, it doesn't get judged until it's been out there for 2 years. And so that's a little bit of a concern on my part, that you understand that you're at risk here. There's no question you are at risk. I'm recognizing you're at risk with these funds. And I think that's the intention, is to do that. It's intention to make sure it gets done, but the intention here from in these wetland restorations, wetland creation aspects of things, it's to ensure that the work actually succeeds in doing what it does. I mean, there's been, study after study about, wetland replication, wetland creation, that, how many of them fail. And I'm just concerned that if we take the money off the table, that our ability to make sure it happens at the end of the day then falls on someone else's shoulders, and because there may not be enough money left to do it. So,
Well, okay, I understand that. You heard the paragraph, page 1 of the original, of the actual bond, when I posted the bond. Page 1, last paragraph, sentence 3, it's a 75% survival rate, okay? So right off the bat, I'm allowed 25%. And then why would I have all these additional line items of work that needs to be done, just like a regular road bond? Okay, why would I have those line items if I was being held up on just plantings? Because there's a lot of work that came in to getting ready to plant these things. So my point is that work's done. And then you allow a 25% survival rate. So I understand taking 25%. I even just said 50%. So again, that's plantings. Again, unless there's a question on what Brad Holmes's report says and the photos that show it planted, mulches around every one of the plants. And there was a lot of plants like you had brought up, and they're in. And like I said, 2 of these areas, which had nothing to do with the bonding, have been planted since the last one was planted in July of this past year. So my point is, why have a set of line items if 17,400 and change is being held until 2 years later? It's just not how bonds have worked with me over the years in any town I worked in. And I want to work with the commission because I have other projects I'm going to be bringing in front of you. So I want to have a good rapport, but I just want you to understand where I'm coming from. Why do we have a list of, 11 line items if I'm going to be held up, on all of them based on 75%
We've
viability?
never actually done it that way. We've always.
I was just about to say,
Taken the money and we've held it until the end of the project. I've
so
never
my-
actually given part of it back before.
So my suggestion is that when I look at what needs to get done, I look at it in its entirety, not as an individual item. So if you had only done 5 of the items and 6 other items hadn't been done, I would say that now this isn't the case here. There's only a couple of small, things that are timing wise that haven't been done yet. But I would say these are the 11 items that sum up the reason for the bond, but they're in totality, not any one individually. Like I can't think about, well, that one's 1,000, this one's 1,200, because really by themselves, one of them isn't really worth anything to me. Okay, it's really
And
in
again, I
their
respectfully
totality, they're worth what we agreed was going to get done. So I think that the fact that there are line items here that are assigned dollar items, I'm not sure I'd agree with that approach from a conservation restoration standpoint, because there are many different aspects that go into a restoration or a wetland creation that isn't single line item things that can be distinguished that way.
Well, that, again, sir, in all due respect, that's not how it's worked with me over the last 30 years. And so this is a shock to me in relation to, because excavation is not going to change out there. The soil brought in per the specifications, compost, is not going to change. So I think the only discussion should be here. And again, I don't know how many of these, like you said, I've never posted a conservation bond, but it identifies the exact same thing that I signed and posted a bond with is the exact same document that I did with the planning board, that they released a 75% of the monies that I posted there because the work was completed. And there was a line item and a road cost estimate, just like I did a cost estimate here, that was approved by the board. And it's the exact same document, exact same duplicate almost. It didn't say all work had to be completed. Okay, and again, in all due respect, again, I've completed the work. It just has a 2-year monitoring period on the plans. So I'm just, I don't know how to read. One board tells me it's okay to come in for a partial release, and another board is telling me all the money you put up stays there for 2 years. And I don't think that's right or fair.
Okay, so I mean, I'll take that under advisement, from the sense that we will make it clear on any bond moving forward that the bond is to be held in total until all the work has been done, including the monitoring period. So I mean, if that wasn't clear on this particular bond, then I haven't gone back and looked at the bond, so I can't say whether it is or not, but I will take that as a point to ensure that any future applicant isn't confused by that point. So does anybody have a motion on the floor? Just Mr. Perrin, I want us to, as a board, to be able to have a conversation about this without, interjection. So if you could just respect that for the moment, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Anybody have any concerns about this? I want to treat the applicant fairly, but I also understand. I also understand the need to ensure that the work is sustainable over 2 growing seasons. So,
what has past practice been for something like this? I guess it seems like this is it. We're being asked to do something unique. Are we?
I haven't done it. Jennifer hasn't done it. Jennifer's been doing this for 20 years. I've only been doing it.
Well, I've done it in Norton where we don't release any portion of the bond until it is finalized.
So we haven't, very few bonds have been posted here in Easton on the Conservation Commission, and that's one of the things here. So this is a little bit of uncharted territory for me. I haven't had anybody ask for money back on a bond before the growing period was over. It doesn't mean that I have any problem with it being asked. I'm raising the concern that the performance of over the 2-year period. So Ben?
I mean, I certainly understand Mr. Perrin's point where he's outlaid a significant amount of money for work that is not going to change. But I do think that the point of the bond is to protect the public's interest in the project. And my concern, and I don't know enough about the planting that was done, is, is there a freak scenario where a large portion of the plantings die and the town could potentially have to incur an expense over and above that bonded money to mitigate what happens there, which is why on a situation like this, I'd lean towards thinking that this isn't something that we would release the funds until afterwards. But at the same time, I do certainly understand Mr. Perrin's frustration with there are aspects of this that have certainly been completed that are not going to change in 2 years. And I'm not really sure how to address that.
But keep in mind,
I think is where we all
growing
are.
seasons, it's not 2 years.
2 growing seasons, excuse me.
So if he's already had 1 growing season, he's waiting for 1 more growing season to go by. It's not 2 years.
So we would expect this to clear by next fall.
That would be the 2nd growing season.
Yep, I'm going on record with what that means. So. Any other questions? Protecting the public's interest in this project, and the applicant having a request that's unusual to us. How do we handle that? So my thought process. Mr. Perrin has asked for us to release $15,000 worth of the bond.
What's the total bond?
$17,746. So it would only have $2,430 left in the bond, which I don't think is sufficient to cover if there's anything there. If we were to reduce the bond by $5,000, I would think that $12,000 would cover any problem. So I would be in favor of reducing the bond by $5,000.
Yeah, that makes me comfortable. Absolutely.
Okay, so Mr. Perrin, I know it's not what you want, but I think I'm doing the best I possibly can in the situation. So you're on mute if you have anything else to say before we go to a vote. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Yep.
Okay, I did hear you, and I respectfully, I was muted anyway. So here's my only other suggestion to the commission, real quick. 75% survival rates right in the bond, okay? There's a total of, that was approved by the board of $7,080 for planting and labor. If you take off 75% viability, okay, I respectfully request the board, that would be $5,310 to be held. That's technically what the board approved, to hold back that all of them gonna die, other than 25% that are allowed. So I would respectfully request the release of $9,735, and that's covering the entire 75% viability of the plants on top of the other line items that are complete.
Okay, so noted. I think though the 75% is sort of a yes or no, it's not a percentage. So if you don't hit 75%, then we have to get to a certain point. But if it drops to 40% survivability, now it isn't just 25% that we're dealing with, it's 60%. So I understand your point, I understand your concern, but our protection of the public interest in this particular aspect of this project, being the wetland replication and wetland creation, because this is in a sensitive area, I think is important enough for us to maintain sufficient bond coverage so that if any work needs to be done to fix it, and some of that work may need to get redone. So the cost of labor, you may have to, do more than just, 25% more labor to get there. So I'm not comfortable with that math at all, to be honest. So,
well, it's and I'm very frustrated because it's just not.
I can
I'm
tell.
telling you, go back 75% of the approved amount of the commission put up for plants and labor. I'm telling you to hold that back. That's 100% technically if you're allowing 25% viability / survival rate. I'm telling you to keep that money plus the remaining line items, which includes the as-built, the monitoring, and the remaining seating in the one creation area.
I have heard that explanation. I understand it. I don't agree with it. I'm going to make a motion to reduce the bond by $5,000.
Wait a second.
Roll call vote. Caulfield's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, aye.
Fatty, aye.
Caulfield Spadia with a second, 4-0 to reduce the bond by 5,000. I know it isn't what the result you wanted, but hopefully it at least shows our intention.
Well, it's
here.
frustrating because it defeats the purpose of what we talked about earlier. And I know you guys are tired and you work hard.
I'm not tired at all. I could go on,
Well, and again, I'm just very frustrated because that's not the way it should work. And I'm frustrated, very frustrated. Very frustrated because we're doing the exact opposite of what this commission's concerned about. The exact opposite. Never mind the personal monitoring of that place, stabilization of a big project like this. And to all of a sudden be told that the bonding, the way the document works is different than how I've done every other request is it's almost defeats the purpose. So why did I do it? But that's that. I'll discuss this with my business partner and we'll go see what we do. But I appreciate the opportunity and the release of at least the partial of what we certainly were looking for.
Okay. Thank you. Give me 1 second. Okay. So next up, environmental planner updates.
I submitted the town meeting warrant article to amend the bylaw to include the Wetland Protection Act exemptions in our bylaw. And Sam Wright field contract is hopefully being signed tonight by the select board. Yay.
All right.
Yep, moving on with that one. I know you were going to mention
What was
that
it called? What was getting signed?
the contract for the excavator to remove 23,000 square feet of fill from Sam Wright Field to create a floodplain restoration area.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just one comment about the bylaw change getting submitted to town meeting. So I know just for the board edification, so I've asked Jennifer just to reach out and make sure that, I think we have to have a hearing on it, or we have to have at least have some sort of, I think we have to have a hearing on it, but we may have to have a hearing between now and town meeting. We'll have to vote to either support it or not. And usually those things actually during town meeting, we get asked what was the board's vote in support of the meeting, or in support of the change. So, you know, there's always zoning bylaw changes. Conservation only goes before them maybe once every 10 years. So there's nothing normal about this, but you know, remember, this is our request to be able to have minor projects we don't have to have permits on. So, and that we can administratively approve, and we put a square footage on it and everything else. So I think we've limited enough to have us understand what we are doing here, and not opening up some sort of ability to go build a house on a piece of property without someone getting a permit. So that's not what our intention is. So just anything else, Jennifer? Because I got a couple of things here. So first, you know, Carol Lundeen did submit her resignation after the last meeting, and Carol had been with us for about 3 years. So valuable member, great perspective on things, great commitment to what we did, and I really do appreciate all that Carol brought to the board, and wish her great luck. She's moving out of town, so I hope that she enjoys her new home and along those ways. So thank you, Carol Lundeen, very much. I appreciate it. The one other thing is tonight, I think the select board had on their agenda to appoint a 5th member. So we'll be back to full staff again come next meeting. And just we look forward to that for sure. And maybe he's interested in the CPC. Two other things was the MACC annual conference actually starts tomorrow, with a whole bunch of available topics to jump in on as you guys were talking, as I jumped in before we actually started the meeting. You know, that's all stuff that gets covered by the town. If you're interested in taking any of those, of you who haven't done your fundamentals courses, you may consider doing that. It's 8 courses over the course of a wide variety of topics related to conservation. That helps people new to the commissions get up to speed on what state and state guidelines are related to this stuff. It's really a great way to sort of get an entrance into what the aspects of this commission really, what the impacts we have on things, just not permitting. We didn't even have a septic system tonight. How did that happen? We didn't have one septic system.
That's a first.
That is a first. So that actually goes through the 12th, just so you know. It's actually over the course of 2 weeks. Normally they have it as a 1 or 2 days on a weekend, and they jam everything into one day, and there's no way you could possibly see everything you wanted to see. And I've been there. So you usually get in a couple of courses, a couple of lectures and stuff, and you get some interesting things. But take a look at the schedule. There's stuff in the evenings, there's stuff during the day. I don't know what works best for everybody, but you know, some great. I've had just take advantage of your membership to the MACC. That's all. That's my recommendation. So I'll stop talking about it. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that there's the UMass has a acid rain monitoring project that they've been doing for many years. They've been sampling water at various waterways and ponds around the state, and once a year they sample it and they see how we're doing on the acid rain impacts to our waterways. The collection date, if anybody wants to volunteer to do this, I've done it probably, I think this is my 4th or 5th year, and they send you little jars. You wade into the water. You better have waders, because some of these places, like, you're literally up to your waist. So But it is a great way to contribute to this project. And if anybody's interested, I can send you the information on how to volunteer and area things. Tim McCall, who's the former chair of this board, he actually has the 2 Easton ones, and he's been doing them for like 10 years. So you won't get the Easton sites, but there are plenty of other sites, and I'll be happy to hand a couple of mine off if anybody's interested in doing something interesting. So I have Lake Winneconne if anybody wants to go wading into that with me. So
It's only 5 feet deep.
yeah, you should try and walk into some of these.
I don't want to walk in there.
I know. Believe me, but you have to take the water at a very specific location, so you're taking it to the same place.
Got it.
And where they have you take it is like, oh my God, it's like, how could you expect somebody to walk in? There's boulders on the stream bed, and it's like,
That's awesome.
and that stream is like 6 feet deep right there. I tell
That
you.
stream under that bridge is real deep.
That's what I'm saying. That's where they
Yeah,
take
you don't
you.
want to go onto that bridge. You'll never come back.
Exactly. I haven't fallen in yet, so knock on wood. I'll fall in this week. But I do go over to the hatchery over in North Attleboro. That's an interesting place to.
It's a really cool spot.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all I've got. I have one more motion on the floor if someone wants to give it to me.
Motion to adjourn.
Nate, come on, give me a second. All right,
Second.
Nate. All right. So motion to adjourn. Callfell's roll call vote. Callfell's aye.
Carol, I.
Crossman, I.
Spady eye.
So thank you all. That was Spadia Crossman with the second 4-0. Thank you all.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.